I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of Michigan and to the state for which it stands, two beautiful peninsulas, united by a bridge of steel, where equal opportunity and justice to all is our ideal.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama.
Here.
Shippers.
Here.
Spolman.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Filkins.
Here. And at this time, if we could have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
Mayor, members of the council,
Oh,
may
yes.
I just quickly interrupt? Just a moment or two ago, it was asked of me if I wouldn't mind moving item F under the city manager's report to the top of the city manager's report due to traveling from some out-of-town guests.
Perfect.
Okay.
Not the only one.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the one change, the city manager's report, F going to AA for city manager's report.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. And at this time, we will open the floor for our first public comment. And we do ask that when you come to the podium, if you would please provide your name and your address. If you could write it for the clerk, she would greatly appreciate it. And the first public comment is to talk about things that may be on the agenda this evening.
Or did we switch that? I think
Did
we switched
wanna
that
switch
so
it?
that,
So it could be anything?
I thought we did.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Anything.
Anything. Okay, seeing no one, we will close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. And this evening, what we have on the consent agenda is the minutes from the regular meeting that were held on October 6th.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. And the next thing on the agenda is the public hearing. Marcus, would you like to?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. As stated at your last meeting, we're here this evening to amend ordinance number to adopt resolution to adopt ordinance number 2014-11 that will amend section 8-22 of our code regarding building inspection services. Feedback that we had received from the Construction Codes Commission required some additional details. The version that we have has been amended to include those additions accordingly.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance number 2014-11 to amend section 8-22 of the Cadillac City Code, Building Inspection Services Code.
Do we have a support?
Is this a public hearing?
That's what I was just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
We need to open a public hearing.
I should have slept longer. Sorry.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing for any comments from the gallery.
I'm Gordy Maxwell from Cadillac.
and I oppose this action. You have yet to identify what the costs will be, how they would change. So we're concerned what will be the changes in the costs for inspections. We noticed that in the filing with the state, the plumbing mechanical inspector would continue to be the same person but working for a different company at a much higher cost to the residents. How many of you people have a license? There's numerous code licenses available. I happen to have 3 of them. Can anybody on your side of the table pull a permit? Do you actually know anything about what you're doing here? I did notice in your filing to the state of Michigan that you claim there's a conflict of interest with the building official because he's the supervisor of the Charter Township of Herring. He became supervisor in 2004. In 2010, you went begging to him to get him to take over the inspections because you couldn't get along with the help you had at the time. So since 2004, he's been the supervisor and the building inspector. There were no problems. You did state you had complaints. A couple weeks ago, I sent a FOIA request in to get copies of all of those complaints. More so, I was interested in how you handled and responded to those complaints. Excuse me. My surprise was there was no complaints. I received in the packet for the FOIA response a couple of emails between the fire chief and Marcus and Jerry Adams and a couple other people, and basically 2 emails went around the circle about 6 times, but we never did see one valid complaint issued by anybody else other than just inside the staff here. We have this ethics ordinance. You talk about conflicts of interest. Now you accuse the supervisor of conflicts of interest just because he's the supervisor. Currently, with the rates that they have and that they have dropped, the rates foot the entire cost. There's no tax dollars going in to keep this program going. You would probably have to raise the fees, and I'm wondering, do we have a set of fees that you could share with us to show us how you intend to pay for this or what the new costs would be? That would be my concern, and that should be knowledge that you could relay to us before you adopt this. What are the rates going to be? Thank you.
I'm Dave Gregg, and I live in Cadillac. I am a licensed builder and build within the city. Just a second here, let me get my name written down. I guess I apologize, I was out of town and couldn't make the previous meetings. So I'm coming in kind of late to this process. I've been following it in the paper. And I guess I have some concerns similar to Gordy's in that I'm concerned, you know, if we're going to change, we should be getting better service and at least the same fee. But I'm, you know, from what I've read, I don't understand how, you know, we're going to have an out-of-town entity coming in doing inspections. From what I've seen, the city is going to tack on a surcharge on top of what they charge. So I suspect that the fees are actually going to be higher than we're paying now. And I guess if we're paying a higher fee, we should be able to get better service. What is going to be the availability of the inspectors? Are they going to be down here once a week, twice a week, every day? I know every time I wait for an inspection, it costs me money, and the current system isn't the best, but it does work, I can tell you that. But I know that if I miss my electrical inspection on Wednesday, it's not going to get done till the previous Wednesday, And so I have a week of wait in there, which I'm paying interest, delaying other contractors. It's all costing me money. So if we're going to change inspectors, I would hope we're going to get better service than we have now as far as when people come. And another question is, will the inspector that we have, will we have the same inspector coming in every time? Or will we have a cadre of inspectors that come in, you know, a different one each time? And I would like to see some regulatory certainty. In other words, know that the same person is going to be there each time, so I know what to expect of him. In a past career, I've had a lot of code enforcement experience. I supervised a large number of inspectors, and I can tell you that everybody brings their own interpretations to the table. And with the previous inspector that the city had, there were times that I knew his interpretations did not follow the code exactly, but you know, I went along with what he said, spent the money to do what he said, and it's kind of like there were times I was steaming and I thought, do I press this issue and win the battle but lose the war? And that's not the kind of, I mean, if we're going to have people coming in to do this, we need to make sure that you have control of them. And being a contract person, I'm not sure you have any more control over that contract person than you do over the current inspectors. The inspectors we have been doing a fine job on the inspections they've done for me. And I guess that's the main concerns I have. I would suggest that before going any further, you have a work session with the regulated community, the builders, the plumbers, the heating contractors, and come to some kind of consensus on how this process will move forward if you are going to change, so that we know what to expect, getting back to that regulatory certainty. I mean, I don't know any builders that want to intentionally violate codes and, you know, it costs way too much money to have a violation of the code. But with each changing inspector, and since I started the little project I'm building in the city, I've now had 3 different building inspectors. Now I'm going to have a 4th one and possibly several 4th ones. And I can assure you they will have some different interpretations of the code and how things work. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more public comment, we'll close public comment.
I've got a public comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you'll come up, please.
My name is Ben Bigelow, 4086 Morrell Drive. I am also a residential builder. Do have properties in the city that I invest in. And similar things of Dave's, listen to him, very, very true concerns. The other concern I would have as well is, why give another job, if you would, to somebody out of town? And there's very many willing people that you could find in our city that could take the job. And that maybe we know that you can get a personal basis with. Why throw that opportunity away as well? And I think the inspector that's currently doing things is doing a great job. Don't know, and I'm like Dave as well, I haven't made any of these other meetings that you guys have had prior to this, so I don't know the reasons why we are where we are, but hopefully we could just proceed with the way things are, if possible. That's all I got.
Okay, if there's no one else, then we will go ahead and close the public comment portion of the hearing. And open it for discussion amongst the council.
Well, those are all good questions.
Very good questions. I was one that had received several complaints on the current building inspector, and I did not put those in writing, but I did pass them on to the staff. So I have heard several residents complain. But you need to know what the rates are going to be if we're going to make a change. We need a workshop of some sort to talk to you people, because you are the customers of us. And you raise some excellent points, and I think that is needed. That's my personal opinion. As far as, that's true. We aren't in the profession, and you have to work with that individual on a day-to-day basis. And I agree. Information should be shared with you on what the rates are going to be, what the services are going to be. I concur with that. Good points.
As a quick reminder to council, we had talked about having an open house once everything was official and we knew when we would have cutover dates in place. We do not have that yet, only because we're still putting together the last few items that are needed to make the conditional approval from the state non-conditional anymore. But once we are able to establish a cutover date and know that everything has been accepted, we had talked about having an open house with our building inspectors. They had also acknowledged that would be a good idea, where we would invite area builders to come in and have a meet and greet and get to know the people that'll be servicing our community. And it is their intention of having the same core group of people providing the service. They're not going to be looking at switching people in and out. So.
We have a fee structure, correct?
Yep.
And it's been posted?
Fee structure has been approved, similar to the agreement, which was conditional upon approval from the state. So the state has approved, but has said, we need you to tweak the ordinance, which is, again, what we're here to do this evening, as well as put together a board of appeals, among a couple of other housekeeping type items.
So maybe we should educate the public about that, the Board of Appeals.
Board of Appeals will be an appointed board, appointed by the City Council. We had a Board of Appeals in the past when the city previously performed these services internally. The Board of Appeals was the Zoning Board of Appeals, acted with a different hat on their heads. I am not familiar if we've had any items ever go before them. Jerry, you had indicated that you didn't believe that they'd ever heard anything, at least in your tenure
Not since
here.
I've been here, no.
So that's 10 plus years in which there's never been an item before them when the city previously had provided the service. We need to get another Board of Appeals put in place now. The state is requiring that the folks that comprise the board have some specific background in the business. And so it's not as simple as simply saying, well, our zoning board will just simply also be the construction codes appeals board anymore. So we need to try to find some of our local experts. It sounds like we have a few in the room here this evening.
They live in the city.
And see if they'd be willing to volunteer to be appointed, and we would then need to create the board as well. So.
And how many seats make up that board?
I do not know right now. I'd have to look into that and advise. Unless, Mike, do you know off the top of your head? No.
So how do you respond to the concern that Mr. Gregg brought up about having 3 different building inspectors on the project that he's currently working on? Was it currently working on?
Pardon me?
Is this a project that you're currently working on, that you've had 3 different inspectors?
Since the project that I started in 2006, the big building, I've had 3 different building inspectors.
Okay.
John Zari, Mr. Hunt.
No, Bob. Yeah. Okay.
When we listened to the presentation from the new company, it was my understanding that it was going to be the same people that would be servicing this area. Is that a correct
Yes.
statement?
Yes. And just for the reasons that were explained by the folks that addressed the city council this evening in the public hearing, for the desire of wanting to build that relationship with the area builders, so that you don't have someone not familiar with the different companies that are operating in town, and that there is that relationship. So. And that was also why they had suggested too that we had suggested with them about doing, once we have some finite dates so we know when there's going to be a switchover schedule, that we have like an open house, bring everybody in an informal setting to kind of meet and greet the people that will be sort of passing getting the responsibility moving forward.
And we did have some discussion about the frequency of their being in the community as well, correct?
Yes.
And that it was going to be pretty substantial.
Correct. They're a full-time operation. As with any operation, they're obviously going to try to be as efficient as they can and try to schedule as many things as possible, during the day. But they said as long as you call in with respect to their call-in instructions, that they'll come out. I think they said within 24 or 48 hours. So, if not even earlier. So they seem very, very reasonable in their approach.
We had some great comments at the first hearing, and I know Mr. Bigelow asked, we really only had one opportunity and heard a lot of the similar comments. We've heard some more tonight. I was really skeptical last time when we were told that our plan will come together after the state approves it, and then we'll come up with our plan. And that concerns me. I think we need to get this right, and I think that an open house or a work session prior to approval makes more sense so that we get it right.
Councilmember Stevens, if I can just interrupt, the plan was actually put together and submitted to the state as a part of the approval.
I know that you were, in the meantime, though, you were going to be in charge of it until we determine.
No, we had to put together a very detailed plan to the state as to how the operational piece of it will work, in order for them to have a good understanding of the city and how we're really, desiring to get back in the business again. It was part of the application packet that we had to submit.
And then that is under whose department then? Has it been determined?
It's under the fire department.
It is going to be under with Anthony, and I've been impressed with the questions that came from the multiple builders. They brought up some good questions, good concerns, and I just see a need to take that step first, meet with them, see if everything's in line, have those discussions. We may find that there's things we need to change, and then we can proceed. I don't think we're on a extreme timeline.
Aren't these amendments to what we already approved, and these are amendments to our plan that the state gave us feedback that we needed to include these further items in that plan in order to be approved? So this isn't like the first plan. This is relative to the feedback from the state.
And the questions, the things that were brought before us this evening were actually brought forward in the previous meeting where the contractor was here, and they addressed some of those things, most of those things.
I was going to just simply add that it's almost like a scorecard. At this point, the the city council has approved the contract with the inspection services company, approved the modifications to our fee schedule, and have approved the ordinance changes to get us back into the business of managing the program here. What we still yet need to do, and the reason why this ordinance is again before you, is because when it was presented to the Construction Codes Commission, they wanted some more finer details on, I believe it was adding the words mechanical, was it mechanical, plumbing, and what was the third, do you recall, electrical. Yeah. Adding that verbiage into it, which is what the amendments do that you're looking at this evening. With respect to the timing, and that's one where it's kind of hard, and I'll freely admit, to try to get our heads wrapped around it, using words like conditional. We were told by the commission that it's approved, conditional on you giving us, X, Y, and Z. The X, Y, and Z is the, copy of the newly amended ordinance, copy of who's going to be in our building codes, our construction appeals board, and then they wanted some additional financial analysis on our revenue and expenditure projection that we also provided to us as part of the submission. So, trying to, get things in place so that we can then basically draw that line in the sand, knowing that we have all the paperwork put at rest to say, okay, now we know, we're going to be, able to effectively start providing this service January 1, or maybe it's April 1. I mean, I'm literally picking a date out of thin air here, is somewhere where I'm hoping to get once we can submit, this information as well as the additional requests that they have, and then we know that we're done and that we have that approval moving forward. I see that as having, once we have that date, or that approval, then we can bring in the open house. And if there are tweaks or things that we need to further look at, I mean, we can amend an ordinance anytime. I mean, you can amend your fee schedules at any time. I mean, these are not things that are finite. So,
well, initially,
Go ahead. I was just going to say, so what you're telling me is that when we have this open house with the builders, and the dialogue is going on between the inspector and the builders, and something needs to be changed, we have the ability to still change that, because we have to take a look at, they're our customers, and if we don't have it right, we can, it creates a problem in the community. And my concern is that we address their concerns. I would have preferred to address their concerns before, try to get ahead of the problem. And but if you could reassure me in some way that we can accommodate any changes that come forward with the builders, then I would be,
I think, let me answer the question in two ways. There's two. City council can always amend and set new ordinances. The work that the council has done over the last 4 months, give or take, on this project has all been done basically by ordinance. And so as a part of that, you've had public hearings, you've had opportunities, and as we're here right now, we're actually already changing something that we already said. So this is the proof that you can certainly go back and change things. I think that it would not be fair to anybody in the room this evening, that whether it's council members or folks that are in the gallery, to set an expectation that, come to an open house, have a meet and greet, and don't worry, any of your concerns, we'll just change it. I want to make sure that
I'm not saying that.
Okay. But that being said, I think that there's no one here that would be unwilling to certainly explore if there's something that needs to be changed once we're up and running, that we look back and see how it's going, and we look at making changes down the road. I mean, we're going to be jumping back into the business of something that, you know, we haven't done in a few years, and there's going to likely need to be some changes as things go on, or as time goes on.
But we did already approve this. What we're talking about tonight is adding these words: Michigan Plumbing Code, Michigan Mechanical Code, and Michigan Electrical Code. Is that true?
Yeah, and so the city already approved this. I argued and still believe that your original ordinance was effective, that it covered all of these areas. The state, however, despite the lack of any statutory criteria requiring it, wanted each of these items delineated as part of their conditional approval. So in order to just satisfy the state that we intended, as the city intended, to administer all of these, including mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, we knew we had this meeting coming up where we introduced it last time and set the public hearing tonight. So the city has already passed this ordinance. The state just wanted a definitive statement from the city by adoption of these amendments to include specifically these three things, which frankly were included in the language of the prior ordinance as well.
But they want that verbiage.
Correct.
And so all we're doing here is adjusting the verbiage pursuant to what the state is requiring.
But we can't, without this, they're not going to approve us making this change.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they would or wouldn't. We at the meeting offered to do it to satisfy them. So they never said, well, you change it or we're not approving it. We said, if it's an issue for you still, we have a meeting coming up. We'll introduce an ordinance and we'll address that concern. So remove that from consideration and we'll have that done.
And we had public hearings and discussions, is a question. We had public hearings and discussions prior to passing the unamended
Yes.
ordinance, right?
Yes.
But
So-
that had to go to the state, and we were under the impression it would go to the state for,
And they came back with feedback asking us to add this verbiage. We already had hearings that went into that, and where all of this stuff was discussed, fees and all that stuff, where we had the vendor here, and then we approved it. I believe we approved it unanimously. And now there's language added, just clarifying that it's the Michigan Building Code plus the Plumbing Code, Mechanical Code, and Electrical Code. That's the only change. So the other thing that's changed is folks are concerned about us going into the business again, and this was something that was discussed at that hearing, and that you know, and to have like a meeting before passing this language isn't going to change the necessity for putting this language in. If at some point you want to repeal the previous ordinance and say that we do not want to do building inspections, then you should bring that up. But at this point, this is something that we approved unanimously.
Right, and I feel like when we approved this, that those same questions came from the floor that evening, and the vendor addressed them pretty completely, and we were confident that the service that would be provided to our community was as good, if not better, than what we provide today.
well, we had a lot, and if, one thing that wasn't stated tonight, initially what we sent to the state, they were not going to, the recommendation was not to approve it. And we then had to go out. If you remember when I was saying we should have a plan first, and we ended up having to provide them a plan. And that plan was provided. There were some things in there that were not even up to par on. The builders obviously aren't. It just makes sense. It sounds like, yes, but they're saying these things need to be in. There were some good questions asked tonight about the plumbing, about the mechanical, electrical, to get a grasp of this. I'm not a builder. I don't understand it. I just don't see the harm in doing that step first to see if there are adjustments that need to be made to answer some of those questions about the fees and such. You are right, we did have this, but we also had that go to the state that came back with a lot of things. I'm not sure what those are either, and if we don't know, I'm sure the builders don't know.
Well, to Councilmember Spillman's point earlier, one of the builders said actually two of them said that they hadn't made it to the previous meetings. So they aren't familiar with what was presented, but there is a fee structure, and those questions were addressed. So, part of their concern this evening is because they haven't seen that. But we did see it, and we approved it.
Well, we also had, I know even since then, builders that have brought up concerns, but that's where I'm at with it.
So, the only way that, on this get-together between the builders and the inspectors, let's say there's a discussion on a particular rate, and we have to make that change, we have to bring it back to us.
The rate structure that the city's adopted was adopted by ordinance.
All right.
So yes, and that would also then result in another public hearing.
Yeah. See, my concern is that they haven't met, and some information, he referred to the services, and I happened to find out because I asked a question. I think your current building inspector, the office is open 4 days a week, I think. And I found out by asking a question, and that's, I guess, where I'm coming from, is the new inspector is going to be available 5 days a week. So, several of these individuals don't know that. Mm-hmm. That's my concern, is that it's easier to put out a fire than wait a week and try to put it out.
Although now we've just heard that.
That's my concern.
Meanwhile, this process needs to move forward in order for this to take place. So these are things that can happen simultaneously. I think a meeting before having everything in place is sort of putting the cart before the horse. And that's what hearings are about. And so hearing what folks...
If I may just add, at this point, if someone on council or anyone were to say, well, Marcus, when will the city council, or when will the city of Cadillac begin providing this service again? I don't have that date, and I don't have that date only because we're still trying to close up some of these open issues. Once these open issues are no longer open, I'm not going to say we're going to start the next day. We're going to look, and this is similar to what we did about 4 years ago when we removed ourselves from providing this service. We looked at a date that made the most sense in which we transitioned current active projects over to the county. We started providing information at the front counter for people that were walking in, giving the date in advance of where they're going to have to go, who they're going to have to call, and how they're going to need to pursue getting their permits. And so it'll be not only somewhat similar, but in addition to that, we had also discussed about having, like I said, like a meet and greet with area contractors and the new company so that they can meet these people in person, in the flesh, and basically have an opportunity just to talk to them and get to know them a little bit.
So
There was
do that before the date?
Oh, of course, sure. Well, we're gonna understand when the cutoff date's going to be, and then as a part of that planning, the communication is going to be to have an open house where there'll be a meet and greet with these people. But to have something like that, if you will, today, if we're not having the service switch off or switch over for 4 months or 3 months, that could really be putting that cart, if you will, as Councilmember Shippers mentioned, way in front of the horse.
Well, it also reduces a lot of their anxiety if you get ahead of it. and have the welcome before that date,
Well, it'll
obviously
be
you can
before.
see that that concern is still out there.
I think that what would help my anxiety or concern about this is if we knew what type of evaluation we had in place once we move forward with this. So not only do we want to have this educational session or meet and greet, whatever you want to call it, because we're already down the course. But, you know, what can we tell folks to expect from us if things aren't working out well? And, you know, what's that feedback loop so that if there are issues, we can try to address them?
Well, that would be with Anthony, wouldn't it? He's going to be overseeing the project, and he was here at that presentation as well. And he's going to be out in front of that and be that connection. There was even some discussion about the new company having office hours here at the city if the customers felt like that would be beneficial.
And if the demand was there. That was, I think, the company's response was with the demand, you know, the high enough activity level.
When we had the other hearing, I really felt like it was going to be a better service, and that it was going to really meet the needs of the city and our builders as well. Are there's tapes of that hearing archived, right, on the internet?
Yeah.
So you could see that and see what their presentation was, and get a feel for what, you know, what kinds of things they were saying and offered. And do you remember the date? I don't remember the date of that. That'd be kind of hard to search through everything. I sure wouldn't want to do that.
You can just literally search in building.
Okay.
And it should pop.
Okay. All right, so I am going to make that motion. Let's see. To approve the resolution to adopt ordinance 2014-11 to amend section 8-22 of the Cadillac City Code, Building Inspection Services Code, so that this can move forward, so that we can then get to where we're understanding this better.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens,
No.
Malama,
Hold you to this. Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Spolman,
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, the next thing on our agenda, we have communications. Sandy?
Yes, the first request is from Nikki Schultz for the closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass on November 29th from 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. for the toy track.
I make a motion to approve the closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass on November 29th from 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. for the toy trot.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from Vicki Essenmacher for the display of a banner from December 1st to December 8, 2014 for the holiday home tour.
It seems like these things are supposed to be so far away.
They're not. It's like minutes away. I'll make a motion to approve the request to display a banner from December 1st, 2014 to December 8th, 2014 for the holiday home tour.
Support?
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
The next request is from David McMahon for the closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass on November 28th from 4:30 PM to 7 PM for Christmas in the Park.
Well, you know we're all opposed to Christmas in the park, but anyway, I will make a motion. There are some things that we can all agree on. I'll make a motion to approve the closure of Lake Street between Harris and Cass on November 28th, 2014, from 4:30 to 7 PM for Christmas in the Park.
Support. Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, and that moves us to the city manager's report. Marcus?
Thank you. The first item is with respect to the Terry D zoning update. And I am going to turn that over to Jerry.
Sure.
And then I need to actually catch up with Owen for a quick second while Jerry's giving the update, so if you'll excuse me.
I'll come up there then. This will only take a second. Just wanted to bring you up to date on an item that the Planning Commission will be considering. Essentially, we're going to be looking at a two-step process with respect to what's commonly known as the Terry D property. Both of those steps or processes will involve both the Planning Commission and the City Council. And essentially, under the Cadillac zoning ordinance, section 46-137, it provides that if a property comes into the city via annexation, and if that property previously had a zone district or was zoned, then what happens is the Planning Commission looks at that prior zoning and makes a determination as to, okay, within our ordinance, which district comes the closest, so to speak. And they, in turn, then will make a recommendation regarding the city classification to you folks. And according to the city code, you may approve that by resolution. Most likely that the property, at least from the standpoint of the Planning Commission, and I can't speak for the Planning Commission, John, our chair, but most likely that will have a residential classification attached to it, because the current, or the classification when it was in Clam Lake Township, it was essentially residential forest in terms of classification. Ultimately, based on what we understand, the gentlemen who own the property and who are developing the property would like to do with it, there's a good chance this is going to come back to you. It'll come back again to the Planning Commission first. Likely they'll be looking for a commercial classification, and then ultimately it will come to you. And in the latter instance, in both of those cases, when it comes back, so to speak, there'll be public hearings before the Planning Commission and public hearings before the City Council. But just wanted to let you know this is going to come before the Planning Commission next Monday. They'll start their discussion. They may even make a recommendation that ultimately will come to you. So you're probably going to read something about it in the newspaper, and we just wanted to let you know what's going on. Okay. That was it. Okay. No action is being requested.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. The other letter A, CWTA interlocal agreement update. I excuse myself for the 30 seconds there because my handout didn't make it into the packet, so I apologize. Oh. I do have a red line handout that is getting duplicated right now, so if we could move to the purification item.
Sure.
Thank you. So this next item is bids and recommendation regarding the purchase of a water purification system. The City of Cadillac has recently accepted bids for the purchase of 2 water purification systems for use in our laboratories at our wastewater treatment facility plant. The recommendation is to go with Servapure out of Bay City, Michigan. And Jeff, I don't know if you want to add any detailed information as to what this purification system does. And what Pure system is?
Yeah, the purification system in our in our 2 laboratories produces a grade of water that we can make reagents from for our testing of the wastewater and the water that we test there. You need to have water that is ultra pure. Our current method is stills, and then we have filters behind the stills. This is a new method. The old stills have actually started to fail. We do have 2 of these that are reagent grade. We've always had 2, a backup for each lab. So essentially, we'd only need 1 of these, but having the backup, you never want to have to go out and actually buy reagent grade water from a vendor when you can produce it so much cheaper over time. So it's just a method of making reagent grade water for us to make our test results, or to get our test results for our water and wastewater laboratories.
And so when you see the list, and then you see in the recommendation the addition of the $1,400 to the price, that's the reason, is because there's a separate system in a separate part of the building.
Yes, and only one of them, when it was originally bid, the winning bidder had only had 1 pre-treatment unit on one of the units, and then the other one he did not have one on. So that's the difference, because I don't think he understood they were 2 standalone units. He thought they were kind of interconnected. So being that they're in 2 labs, there was that little addition that still makes it below all the other bids.
So the budget had $30,000 appropriated for this purchase. Does that $11,050 include everything with installation? And
It does. It's kind of weird, but when we put that in the CIP, that was the current technology. Technology has changed now and made it a lot cheaper to get the same grade of water. So.
Well, it's a whole lot easier to ask for less than it is for that much more. Right?
Exactly. Well, that's a bonus. So.
Yes,
Gold star.
Exactly.
And it surely shows the bidding process that works, again, because even with that increase, it's still, in the 30% less range than the other ones that bid. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recommendation to purchase 2 water purification systems to serve A Pure in the amount of $11,050.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Phillips?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next item is with respect to our Case front-end loader. Our front-end loader, unfortunately, is in pieces, currently sitting at the nearest Case dealership in Bridgeport. There is repair work to it that we were unable to do in-house. The dealer did discover, as the correspondence in your packets indicate, some significant issues with the unit's limited slip differential. We are requesting that at this point the unit is able to remain there. I know we were just talking about a good example of competitive bidding, but given the nature of where things are at with this particular piece of equipment, the fact that it is torn down as it had to be in order to understand what the problems were, we are requesting that City Council waive competitive bidding and authorize for repairs to be given to Bridgeport Equipment Company. We do estimate that it'll be at around $10,164.73.
Around that?
I'm sorry?
Close to that 73 cents.
Yeah, close to I know, that's why I said it's kind of funny when you say we estimate, but that's...
Give a penny.
That's what they gave us, to the penny.
How much did Jeff save on this other operating budget there?
Exactly.
Oh.
Wrong fund, but good, but still good
Isn't
savings.
that like home budgeting,
There you go.
So there would be two items. One would be the waiver of bid motion, and then the second would be authorization.
Make a motion to waive competitive bidding for repairs to the city's case loader.
Thank you.
Sorry, support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to authorize Bridgeport Equipment Company to repair the city's case loader in the approximate amount of $10,164.73.
Support.
Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Malama.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. If I may, go back to the CWTA item. We have the handout. Just as a side, this is the same document that I emailed to City Council for basically general information back on, I want to say, October 10th. But my apologies for not including it in your packet this evening. But basically, in summary, this is a copy of the Cadillac Wexford Transit Authority interlocal agreement. We did our best to have it scanned in and then reformatted. The original copy was likely made on a typewriter, so it did basically take us some time in getting it the way it looks right now. This version takes into consideration the various changes that resulted from discussions that Councilmember Shippers, Councilmember Spelman, myself, County Administrator, and two County Board of Commission members have had over the last month and a half regarding this board. The purpose of sharing it with the City Council tonight is basically to introduce it to Council and to see if there are any other areas that you think we should be looking at or any questions that you may have. And to just jump to it, if you open it up, it is double-sided. Under Section 4, Membership, the changes there reflect increasing the size of the board from 5 to 7 members. As a quick history, this was something that the City Council had brought up when the council conducted interviews for the open board spots. Looking further, it specifies about how the county shall appoint one member to the board from the county as an at-large member and shall appoint one member to the board to represent each of the 4 districts identified below. We tried to clean up that area with respect to where people are appointed from and where they're supposed to be representing. And then if you look below those 4 areas within the out county, it then moves into the city shall appoint 2. Previously, as you can see through the strikeout, it did say 1 members to the board to represent the city, and the members shall be appointed for a staggered 2-year term. Looking forward in the document to the next page, although that was basically our primary initial objective of looking at expanding the number of members on the board, we couldn't help ourselves, and we got into a few other areas as well. We looked at cleaning up some of the language under officers, basically just to crystallize that it would require 2 signatures for the signing of financial documentation. Basically, one signature would be from the chairperson, and then one would be from someone else as identified by the authority board itself. We also looked at, if you flip to the next page, under meetings, under C, we looked at cleaning up that information to reflect the new board, as well as under F, finance and revenues, which is perhaps another big section where essentially it says that if a county transportation millage vote fails, the authority will continue to operate until available funds are depleted. Previously, it stated will terminate at the end of its fiscal year, and so that's a very important change as well that the committee, the group looked at and put together. So I'm not sure if Councilmember Shippers or Spelman, if you had anything you wanted to add based upon the work and the conversations, but this is where we're at now. I believe the next step is to try to reconvene with that group either later this week, possibly, or next, to see if there was any feedback from either of the boards that requires any additional changes, or if we are basically getting the thumbs up and continuing to move forward.
I think an attorney's going to have to look at it, so we wanted to make sure that we got some feedback from the rest of the elected officials before we go to that step. But, you know, I'm pretty pleased that we moved us forward as fast as we could, and we had consensus on the changes.
It'd be nice having a second person from the city on that committee, which is nice. And I'm assuming this is just something that got missed in the membership section, where it looks like they're adding a member of their board. Now, on the second page of that, at the top, it's probably just something that's missed, where it's saying that no appointed members shall be elected officers. Is that just something that didn't get, I'm assuming maybe just didn't get caught, or is?
Appointed members shall not be elected officers or employees of the county or city.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
But they're planning on appointing one of their county commissioners?
Think they are
That
anymore.
was a topic of discussion, and we decided that it should be community representatives and not board members.
Okay. So they would change to that, but they would just appoint that person from anywhere within the county?
Right.
Okay.
Just an at-large member.
Yeah.
And then ours would have to be city residents?
City resident.
Is that noted in here, Gina?
Well, the city appoints too, so that would be representing the city.
They'd have to
Yeah,
come
and
from
it
the
says
city?
down here, under 3, it says, the authority may request that the county or the city replace its member if the member moves from the district
Yeah.
that she or he represents.
So you're happy with it getting to the point of approval?
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys would add?
Conceptually, we're just looking for that, I guess,
Oh, I
and
think it
we'll
looks
fine
good.
tooth comb it later.
May I? Councilmember Stevens, I think I'm picking up on something that you said, which maybe it's in here and I'm just not seeing it, but you had mentioned about city appointees being residents of the city. And I don't know if I see that language specifically, but that's something I think we can add, because that was...
Just to clarify?
Yeah, it doesn't
that-
really say it other than that if they move from the city, they
Right.
can't represent the city anymore. But that's probably a good idea, listed
Didn't have
under
that in there.
5,
That's crazy.
where you've got the 4 listed under, as number 5 on the first page.
Yeah.
Who was the county commissioner that worked with you? Mark Howie?
And
Bill Goodwill.
Bill Goodwill.
And they seemed happy with everything too?
We had good discussions, and really, I mean, when Councilmember Spelman said consensus, it was quite cordial consensus. It was like, oh, that makes sense, and we all just kind of... We all feel that this is an essential service to the community, and to have this document, something that everybody agrees with and is workable, is also essential to its good operation.
It's exactly what, when those interviews, exactly what we were looking for, was moving, or going from 5 to 7.
Okay.
We're good?
I think that that's good discussion to have in light of the fact that there's going to be a millage request on the ballot in November. it's good for citizens to know that we're moving forward with this and taking a look at it, and, you know, it's got our eyes and ears and the county's eyes and ears, and it is an essential service. We want to see that we continue to be able to provide this service to our residents.
All right. The next item is with respect to the police radio system upgrade, and I do see that Lieutenant Detective Todd Galnick is here, and Owen is still here, our finance director, and so I'm going to call on these guys to help give the presentation this evening.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. A little bit of background and history here. About a year ago, we were here discussing this project. That was without me at the time. Matt Wolfile was the lead from the police department on that. Then late in the year, probably December, we had an opportunity to pursue a grant to fund this project. That grant was pursued in a joint effort with Wexford, Osceola, and our agency, and we were not successful. Prior to the grant opportunity, we were trying to move forward and finance the project ourselves. As a result of the grant not being approved this summer, I intentionally waited coming before you to make sure that everyone at Wexford County was going to move ahead with the project, knowing that that needed to be in place first. They have since approved their end of this project and have moved forward. Just a quick, I won't bore you with all the details again, but just as a quick background on it, basically as a result of FCC requirements to narrowband our radios, basically they have half the effectiveness now, and as a result of that, we're probably losing, I'm going to just estimate, but we're probably losing 25% of our transmissions, which isn't very good. That's 1 out of every 4 pushes of our microphone. That was something that was pushed down. It took years and years and years for it to go through. When it finally came through, the realization was that our radios just weren't working anymore. During all this time, state of Michigan has the Michigan Public Safety Communication System. It is that system that is an 800 megahertz trunk line system that goes throughout the entire state. The main customer is the Michigan State Police. It is not their system, but they are the main customer for them. This system will allow us interoperability with anyone else that's using the system, and currently that's going to be just about everyone in this area. It's the same equipment that we're asking of you today is the same equipment that was recently just purchased by the Sheriff's Department. It actually sits there at the Sheriff's Department right now awaiting a permitting process. That should be installed shortly, and they'll be moving ahead on that. As a result of them purchasing that equipment, there will be no more support for our high band frequency. The good news is that this purchase of the system does allow us to improve the high band system for the fire department. As a result of high banding, they experience the same things, and in fact, fire departments are not getting pages as a result of these huge dead zones that were created. By implementing this, by becoming part of this system, we can now utilize their tower space, and the county is going to be able to improve the high band by utilizing the tower space that these current 800 megahertz towers are using. Therefore, and they can use those for free. Other advantages of that is that we can create event channels if we ever have local civic events, or when, I shouldn't say if, when we have them, for hazmat events or any time of a natural disaster. We can automatically create agency interoperability where we can coordinate with agencies, anybody who has a system in a state who would come to assist, and we can all work and communicate. Other advantages is that the MPSCS system is constructed completely out of Motorola equipment. As a result, my experience with talking with several other agencies in the police and fire world is that the Motorola equipment seems to definitely work best. There's been a lot of other problems, and I'll touch on that just a little bit with the non-branded equipment. It is state-of-the-art. It's digital. It's next-generation equipment. It has officer safety capabilities such as GPS locating and an emergency call button. We had at least one event in the last several months where an officer was on the ground grappling with a suspect, attempting to call for help, and his transmission never went out. With this equipment, all they have to do is find that emergency button, and we'll know where they're at with the GPS coordination, and we'll know who it is because it's all electronic serial, so we'll know which radio is actually doing that. That's something we couldn't even begin to do with the equipment we have now. It's very durable. We had some very specific specifications on it. It's not unbreakable, but it can take quite a beating. I'm familiar with a fire department downstate, Livonia Fire Department, has over 100 of these units that they've had in place for over 2 years, and you can imagine the environment that they're working in. The units that we're talking about are identical, and they have had zero, not even a broken antenna. They have zero malfunctions. They've had them programmed, put them in service, and that's been it. You could expect about a 15-year service life out of this. I think it could almost be stretched out when we start talking about the mobile units. The mobile units are what would be in the cars. They're a little better environment for them at that area. The other advantage of Motorola is that we have a local service here, which we wouldn't have with any other brands. We currently do service with Telerad, which is Motorola trained and authorized technicians. We have had at least 35 years history with them, and I'm well aware of doing business with them for at least that long. Then we also be able to communicate on the system regardless of our geographic boundaries. So if we were in the UP or in Detroit, these radios would work. We could literally talk to our officers right here in town, just to give an example of the capability of the network, of the 800 megahertz network that's established. The Kenwood and the E.F. Johnson radios that are in the bid in your packet, they don't meet many of the bid specifications. Some of the items that are extremely important do not fall within the bid specifications. Also in your packet there, the bid on the Motorola equipment, I've been able to reevaluate the bid that as it was originally done last November, and determined that we didn't need quite as many of those portable radios, and we've pared it down a little bit. So currently, I would expect that purchase price to come in just under $118,000 instead of the number that you have there.
If I may just ask a quick question.
Sure.
About a year ago, when we had a briefing on this, it was talked about the ability of using the county's Motorola-based central unit, and I might be using the wrong terminology, but is that ringing a bell at all with you? With respect to some kind of command control module or command?
Well, the county, Wexford Central Dispatch will have this, the 800 megahertz is what they'll be running out of there. They'll only be using high band, which is what we're currently supporting for fire service. They won't be carrying the police channels anymore. So basically, in a very short amount of time, we're going to be on an island. We're not going to have anyone to talk to. So. And
that's why I thought that moving that forward, there were some efficiencies that were discussed about, or maybe it wasn't efficiencies, maybe it was necessities being discussed about how making the move and sticking with the same vendor that's being used by the county specifically is perhaps one of the... And that's exactly right. And it's actually my very next point was the system that I'm seeking here, like I said, it's going to be carried by the deputies in this county, by even Manton Police Department is bought the same equipment, and the Michigan State Police. And what it doesn't just prove the reliability, but what it does is they get a little bit more complicated than your cute little walkie-talkies, you know, and there's programming and there's so many different things you can do with it. What it does, it allows me to literally, in an incident, throw a deputy a radio and he'd be able to actually function, or vice versa, and we'd be able to continue on. We do work very close with all the agencies in the county, and we're always, I wouldn't say often, I would almost say always on some sort of joint operation, because we help them and they help us. And I think there'll be a lot more efficiency involved if we're using the exact same equipment.
And everyone in the region because the grant dollars weren't available, everyone in the region, if I'm remembering correctly, has to upgrade their own system, i.e. the hospital. We just upgraded our 800 megahertz console. And it was because everyone, the grant dollars weren't available, so all of the different entities agreed to make it all happen?
Yeah, basically, and I'm not real familiar with how the grant process happened. I was on the peripheral at that time, but I know that there was this opportunity that they basically pursued a similar grant that was successful at other agencies. It appeared to me from some of the feedback that I got that basically that grant had just ran out of money and we were just a little late on the opportunity. Because I know we fit right in on it at the time, but I know of no other grant opportunities. The clock has kind of ticked on this. I will take you back just a little bit farther. Like I said, in November, I think you were first presented with this in a workshop session. December, we went ahead and said, well, we'll set it aside. We'll see if we can't get this paid and minimize the cost of the city. In January, upon Captain Matt Wolfow's retirement, I met with all the sergeants of the department, and I asked them, what is our number one problem? I want to know what our biggest challenge, what our biggest problem is the police department right now, and it's unanimously been our radios. And every month when I've met, it's been the exact same thing. And I've just asked them to be patient as the process took place. And it is probably the most mission vital piece of equipment we have. A lot of people identify a police officer with a gun and a badge. I can tell you I can do that. I can do the job without that quite a bit. I don't really want to, but I can do it without it. But what makes a police officer effective is his ability to communicate and make things happen, and it's the radio. If you ask any officer who tries to do something when they're off duty and they don't have equipment, it's the radio that gives you your effectiveness. And right now, when we're pushing it, especially when we're in buildings such as this one, the hospital, the building, and the schools, if you can think of a more important place that we need to use our radios, I'll probably tell you it doesn't work there either. But by their design, they kind of really suck up the signals, and they're very ineffective in those buildings. And we spend most of our time in this building, the hospital, and the schools. So I'm not saying that we'll never, ever go without a problem. I mean, there's still going to be radios, but it is a proven system that has been well mapped out, well engineered, and without reiterating the entire process of the MPSCS. I have full confidence that the Motorola equipment will deliver exactly what it is that we are looking to fix.
Now, Todd, it says that the bids were presented last winter, and you said you could do with less radios. Do you know, or does Owen know, that the pricing that was submitted last winter, is the pricing the same?
The pricing is a little bit less, and I have representatives here. I could probably address it more specifically, but I can tell you that I'm aware that the break that we have through tomorrow, as a result of me pressuring Motorola to get this bid for today, I did get last quarter's pricing, which is a discount of $500 per radio, and that goes, the nationwide Motorola discount is $200 for this quarter. And so if we didn't take action, the price would go up kind of significantly, and I'm not saying that to put any urgency on, but I was able to basically strong arm Mr. Uslan into giving you a fair price for this meeting here to allow us to feel like we were doing, I think it's $50 a radio less than the winter pricing is where we're at right now. And then I've asked for 6 less radios.
If I may, just throw a question actually to our finance director. And I apologize, I wasn't able to touch base on this before tonight, given that I was out of the office last week at the tail end. But just a question with respect to the recommendation this evening. Based upon the presentation, to me it almost sounds like it's a sole source. Is that what we're looking at? Or?
Nope, I believe that we're going to recommend that they most fully meet the specifications that were bid out as part of the bid. So we're recommending not a waiver, not a sole source, but full compliance with the specifications of the sealed bids that are presented here.
Okay, and the other 2 didn't have the full compliance?
Right, there were some exceptions. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And we have budgeted for this?
Yeah, that's the hard question is where's the money come from? Because no, we had budgeted originally for about $8,000 in just some normal radio replacements of the old system. And so what we've been able to do though is leverage some vacancies. We have 2 current openings right now that have been open since the beginning of the fiscal year. And one of those, I believe the process is just about to get started, and those are a 6 to 8 week process. So we're looking at half the year of 2 vacancies, the director top position and a patrol officer position that was vacated with a resignation back, I think, in May. And so that's gonna, at this point, just leveraging those for the 6 months out of the year would cover about $95,000 of the purchase price, which again we're estimating to be about $118,000. So if one of those positions remains vacant a little bit longer, even that'll reduce that a little bit. What it enables, I think, and Todd and I have talked about it at length, is really the addressing of the number one problem that they're faced with from a communication perspective. So at this point, it looks like all or a vast majority of the cost can be absorbed just by reclassifying basically an already made legal appropriation in the police department. So we're not recommending basically a budget amendment at this time for this.
Well, I've got to say, this is one of those requests that, and I didn't hear anything about it coming into tonight's meeting, but over the last year or more, I've heard more about this than I have about almost anything in terms of equipment for that police department. I hope you can make it happen. I hope that is such a needed thing. They really have to have this. I hope you can make it happen.
Well, if I were on the ground fighting with someone, I would want a radio.
And it's good to know that Wexford County went through with it.
Well, like I said, the interoperability is the key here, and I really didn't want to approach council and then go through all this, and then if the county didn't do it, then not, it's no good for us to have it and them not, and it's no good for them to have it and us not. It really is a community approach, because we really are policing the same people, just in different geographic boundaries at the end of the day.
Well, no, we did give that commitment over a year ago, because the county we need to do this together, and we gave that okay. And then, but we also committed on us paying for it. The fact that both departments said, hey, let's try to get a grant, is appreciated that you took the time to do it, because we had already committed this being a project that we knew needed to happen. So it's good that you tried that. And probably just talking about the servicing itself, that'll probably over time save funds by it being local and by it being for multiple jurisdictions as well, through Motorola.
And if I can address servicing a little bit, I just did renegotiate our service contract. I took a look at things and saw that we were paying for some things that we didn't need anymore. Just recently renegotiated that. That saved us a few $1,000s. And as a result of these, we'll eliminate the contract during the warranty period, and we'll probably reinstitute a contract after that for service for these things. So it's not a ton of money, but it's probably $4,000 annually is what been able to wrench out of it.
What is the annual fee for?
Pardon me?
What is the annual fee for service, preventive maintenance, and?
The service fee, and I don't have the contract with me, but it's based on what you're going to have them do, and they charge us per radio with our mobiles or our portables, or separate or both, and then we also had it included to service our cars, all of our emergency equipment on our cars. Basically, the emergency equipment on our cars has been all being installed new. In the old days, you kind of recycled that stuff and you could create it, and you carried it over with the newer cars and with the requirements we've had to buy new equipment. and there just hasn't been the need for service. We haven't been fixing anything. It'd be a lot cheaper to fix the one rare event that we have than it has been to maintain the contract. In the past, the contract was definitely the way to go. So took a look at that, saw where we're spending our money, decided to renegotiate that, put only our radios on it recently. And now, like I said, if we can purchase these radios, then we'll have a warranty period and we'll just eliminate it for a while. It's not a lot of money, but it is some money, and it does move in the direction that we want for this project. All set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will make a motion that we approve the recommendation as presented for the radio system upgrades, and it'd be awarded to Motorola Solutions Incorporated in accordance with the proposal that they presented.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Melama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spelman?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes. Motion carries.
Should have acknowledged the Girl Scouts.
I know, I was going to after that.
And they ran out of time.
Oh, I can't get their attention now.
I think she thought you were waving to them.
You want them back?
Yeah.
They sat through this whole meeting. Is that okay, Marcus? Okay.
Look forward to working with you. Yep, be in touch. Thanks for being patient.
We could have added another.
The work you did, Rich.
What?
We could have added them.
Yeah, no, they just showed up. So I met them all earlier, but.
Sorry.
Hi, we just wanted to give you a chance to come forward and let everyone know what your name is and why you're here with us tonight. And then I'll introduce you to everybody on the council.
But they're not really that quiet.
You're looking at me like, what is that?
What am I supposed to do?
Are you guys that quiet at your meetings? No. No? Okay.
Just say, hi, my name is.
Hi, my name is Gracie, and we're here to get our government badge.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hi, my name is Harmony. Hi, my name's Alexis. We're here to get our government badge. Hi, my name is Lindsay.
Thanks for coming.
Well, it was so nice to have you girls with us tonight. Did you find it interesting or a really long meeting? You can be honest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
They found it breathtaking.
Yeah, I know they didn't.
What do you think? But they're not
Marcus.
thinking today, boy, I want to do that when I grow up.
Yeah.
Thank you. The final item, I believe, final item under the city manager's report. Oh, next to, almost the final item, is a sale of vacant parcel on East North Street. We've been approached by a few parties, or at least a couple of parties, looking at buying a vacant lot that's directly across the street from McKinley School. When we have been asked to do this in the past, we've come before the city council requesting to get your endorsement of putting the property up for sale and soliciting for bids. That's what we're here to do this evening. Should the city wish to consider selling the lot, we will put a bid notice together. We'll put it in the newspaper. We'll also let the contiguous property owners made aware of it and give them a copy as well, along with the bidding instructions.
So this doesn't go in front of the planning commission?
No.
It's just a staff?
Does that end up being a public hearing for that?
Yeah. Yep. It's sold by ordinance, any city-owned property. So this will be back to you 2 more times. Once when, if you approve this tonight, we'll put an ad in the paper for a public open bid. Then when we receive those bids back, we'll introduce the ordinance and schedule the public hearing. Then we'll be back for the public hearing where you'll consider approval of that sale by ordinance.
And there's currently a house on both sides?
Yes.
2 houses on one side.
I never knew that was a city lot.
Yeah, who knew? There's a few out there
Big
that,
backyard, didn't you?
I think it was another tax foreclosure. We have a deed from the state for it.
That's
so,
why then,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the placement of a bid notice along with bidding instructions informing the public of the parcel's availability for purchase.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Malama?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Spelman?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The last item under the City Manager's report is a request to set a work session for our city goals. Our next regular City Council meeting is on Monday, November 17. We do have some options. We could look at setting a meeting earlier in the afternoon. I would say starting perhaps no later than 4:30. Alternatively, we could look at setting a work session for perhaps the day after, which would be on a Tuesday, on November 18th, or perhaps looking at setting the work session for maybe the week before. Looking at Mondays, the week before would be Monday, November 10th. And if time is an issue, then certainly we can look at a different time, perhaps 5 o'clock or 5:30 or some time to that nature, which is what I'm tossing.
I'm not available November 10th.
Okay.
I already have a meeting that day, that night.
What about the Tuesday after that? What's the date of the Tuesday?
The 18th.
It'd be nice not to do it on the same night as a council meeting, just because, then we'll have a good session and you won't be tired going into a council session, but I'll go with whatever everyone else would like to do.
I was 5 on the 18th.
5 on the 18th.
I will
works for
be
me.
gone.
You'll be gone?
My preference is Monday, the 17th, before the other meeting. I've got something on Tuesday, too, so. You're going to be gone on the 17th, too?
Are you going through the holiday?
Yes. So my first probably available time would be in December.
Could we?
And there were some goal-setting things where you were not able and you wrote some things. Would you be willing to do something like that? So we can get this process moving ahead before we get into the holidays?
It'd be nice to have everybody there, though.
Yeah, it would.
Would there be availability on the 13th, which is a Thursday?
Of November?
No, November. Are you going still?
I'll be gone.
Oh, you're on? Okay.
I was trying to time, and I know we're probably a little behind. Usually, this is the month we're also doing the, I don't know if you, the evaluation.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
And the, I don't know if you call it the evaluation as much as the annual review and.
We're going to put that on the next agenda.
Oh. For the, and we're doing a meeting as well? Or I'm sure it's going to be talked about.
We'll talk about it offline, if that's
Yeah.
okay?
It's the.
But yeah, it's on the radar.
Okay. I was trying to time that with if we were doing some work sessions on that to with this.
What are the dates you'll be gone, Doug?
I'll be gone quite a bit of November. I'll be back and forth, but I'll be gone most. December would be the best.
Just for food for thought, our first meeting in December is actually December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bright and early in the month. If we are considering having this meeting in December, my preference would be perhaps to do it on the 2nd, just so that we're not doubling up on the same night after being broken away for the Thanksgiving holiday just the week before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that if we did it not on the same night as a council meeting, it just affords us a little bit of extra time, should we need it. A little more than just an hour and a half, and we have to be done. So, and if we're done in an hour and a half, fine, but this way,
right.
we can have a good session without having to worry about time.
So just to sort of circle back, we do understand that we're looking at, I think, a 5 o'clock start. I think the dates that were thrown out at this point is Tuesday the 18th or Tuesday the 2nd.
Well, Doug can't be here on the 18th, right?
And Doug,
Yeah.
right. So
Okay.
Go ahead, meet without me.
No, I'm
We
just
should meet with Doug here.
recapping the dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm putting down the 1st, or the 2nd, rather. Is everybody else available on the 2nd?
Yeah. That works.
Pretty long day. First meeting's at 7 a.m. That's 5.
If I may request, just for clarification, we're looking at the 2nd, 5 o'clock, goal setting?
Yes.
Better put an alarm on that, because that's gonna go on my radar.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is the adoption of ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I will introduce this item this evening. We are looking at setting a public hearing for November 17th, 2014 for an industrial facilities tax exemption certificate in the amount of $934,508. This is for Avon Protection Systems. This is a component of their current Michigan Economic Development Corporation incentive program that they have with respect to consolidating some operations out of state and bringing them in state. This will actually create 29 new jobs here at their Cadillac facility. And I'm not sure if there's any representative here. Sir?
Yeah.
You with Avon?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind coming up and just introducing yourself, this would just a quick opportunity to.
Sure, I'm Rob McCulloch. I'm the Director of Financial Reporting at Avon Protection.
Thank you. And so, again, we're here this evening to set the public hearing. We've been very supportive of Avon and of all of our industrial partners. And just as a quick frame of reference as well, Avon Protection was instrumental in helping to solicit and obtain the local match provision for the street project that'll be occurring in their neck of the woods next year.
That's a lot of thanks to all of you for doing that too and being proactive. Because I know we used to get a lot of those, but I don't know if internally we've, pushed on it like you proactively did. So we appreciate that very much. And the good news is you were so patient tonight. At least the next meeting public hearings are at the beginning.
Yes.
Mike's going to hear it, isn't he? Because he wasn't available to be here tonight.
He's in England today. So.
Oh, he's in England, okay.
So can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Sure, what it is we consolidated some operations. There was a plant down in Georgia, and the decision was made to possibly close that plant. It could have relocated either up here to Cadillac, or it could have relocated to our other operation in Mississippi. We went to the state to get some incentives to help us relocate it here, and that's what was done. It will create a minimum of 29 new jobs. We've spent about $1.2 million either in capital improvements or bringing up capital from Georgia to here.
And what's the time frame for this? Are we already in full gear with it? Or?
We're already in full gear with it. Right now, the facility down in Georgia has 3 people there still, and that's it.
Wow.
All their production's been moved up here.
Bad for them. Good for us.
Well, can I make a motion to adopt a resolution to set a public hearing for November 17th, 2014, to consider a request from Avon Protection Systems, Inc., for an industrial facilities tax exemption certificate in the amount of $934,508.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Melama.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, this next item is the request to adopt a resolution that will introduce an ordinance to repeal the City of Cadillac Code of Ethics and the setting of the public hearing for November 17th, 2014. Mike, could you kind of walk us through the resolution?
Sure. As you know, at the last meeting, the City Council directed us to draft a resolution ordinance repealing the ethics ordinance. That is before you. This is just the introduction. Of course, like any ordinance, you will have to hold a public hearing and then make a decision to either adopt that ordinance or not. And that is set currently by the resolution as well on November the 17th.
So if we, just asking the question that's been asked, if we repeal or vote to have the hearing to repeal the ethics ordinance, does that mean that it's the wild, wild west and we're suddenly unethical?
Well, there are conflict of interest statutes that are applicable to local officials, public officials, particularly in self-dealing arrangements like contracts and other pecuniary gains. Notwithstanding that side of it, there are also the public employees being involved in political issues that is governed by statute as well. So certainly ethics as a whole, apart from, say, conflict of interest or political activities by public employees, is a little broader. So, for example, you have in your ethics ordinance, you may have sort of vague codes of conduct that aren't really defined, which may lead to issues, as opposed to a pure conflict of interest, which is there are certain disclosures that would have to be made by public employees or public officers if, for instance, you were involved with a contract involving that municipality, which obviously are generally disfavored for obvious reasons, as opposed to some of the more broad-based ethics-type issues, sort of like your core values are now, even though they're stated. They're difficult to put your arms around in terms of what it means for each person, as opposed to true conflicts of interest.
What is a true conflict of interest?
Well, typically it is one in which you stand to benefit financially from a decision or the outcome of such decision.
So personal, you're saying, is not a valid reason?
That's correct. That traditionally a conflict of interest involves solely a pecuniary gain in the result of the decision.
Then I think we got a problem with our charter. Does not our charter mention personal?
You can define it differently.
Well, I'm sure we could, and I'm sure we could find a lot of legal opinions on that. But our charter definitely does say personal.
Well, if I took...
And there are plenty of Supreme Court decisions that have shown that.
Is there a question?
Statement.
Well, look, I can define conflict of interest in your charter or in a code of ethics any way you want me to define it. What I said is traditionally the common law is where you are going to benefit from a decision that is made financially. How you may or may not define it by charter is a different issue, but it goes to my point, which is if it's already defined by your charter, why do you need a separate ordinance further defining it?
Because if you go to the charter and you file a complaint, it's going to cost us legally a lot more money. because then you have to file with the prosecutor, then you have to go to court. So if we're looking at legal expenses because of the ethics policy, by eliminating it and using the charter alone, I'll state right now, the expenses are going to be much higher.
You're talking about filing a complaint with the county prosecutor, that's free.
That is free, but if he finds charges, then that's the next step.
Yes, but that too is free.
Well, it's going to cost us a lot more. Guarantee it.
Well, that's just not true in terms of a criminal prosecution.
You know, when I was appointed to the Planning Commission several years ago, I went to a training. And it was an extensive, once a month, or I think it was twice a month for several months, to learn about being a planning commissioner and city planning, and 2 sessions were dedicated to ethics and conflict of interest. And one of the things that was pointed out is that we all are in small towns where we know each other. And if we had to recuse ourselves every time an issue came up that involved somebody we knew, we would be crippled and would not be able to ever decide. And that is why the bellwether is whether or not you stand to financially gain. And that was what was taught to me in these sessions that were put on by, I don't remember who did it, but it was, there were experts, speakers each time from all over the state. And it was all people that were experts in planning and then experts in this. And I think in a place like Cadillac, if we have to decide issues that involve people we know, and so we say we can't decide those issues, we could all go home right now. Well, some of us could. My husband, for example, couldn't make a decision to save his life because he knows everybody in the world. We all know many people. We are all involved with many people in many ways. And according to this training that I had, that is the bellwether, or I can't think of the term that I'm trying to find right now. But so what I'm seeing, and the reason that I brought this up and wanted to deal with this, is that sometimes what seems like a good idea at the time turns into something that becomes a monster in your house. And I will say, every time that this ordinance has been used, from the very first time when you yourself filed one against Officer Gulnick for using the logo, the city logo, after, no, that was not, when you wrote, and you could look at what you said. You said it was for using the thing, but whatever. It was coming in the day after a political advertisement was in there and looking to use the ordinance to deal with the political advertisement. Whether or not, this is just, all I'm saying is that what's happened is this thing has turned into guilt by accusation. And it does not, if someone is doing something that is illegal, if you make laws to make almost everything you do illegal, then yes, you're breaking the law. But if you use the sane laws of the state and the laws that cover such things as what truly is ethical and unethical, then if somebody violates those, use the law that's already there. We've heard, how many times have you heard in the past 5 years, repeal and replace? When something is not working the way it's intended to work, then it is a problem. And I think that's where we are here.
It was adopted in 2012. We didn't have a problem until the
election
last November, and that's when the ethics charges came through. Now, as far as my ethics charge, I wanted to go, and it's a matter of fact, I wanted to go through personnel policies because I felt that the personnel policies and the regulations within that department satisfied the need.
And what was your motivation?
Let me finish, would you please? I let you. I wanted to go that direction. The city attorney and the city manager said it would be far more effective to use the ethics policy. So, to put that question at rest, but everything is centered around the election. And as far as conflicts, personal, when you refer to a small town, oh yeah, there would be a host of conflict of interest, but we aren't talking about other people. I'm talking about myself, and I'm talking about how we have been exposed to this case all the way through. So I'm not talking about others, I'm talking about myself. And I'm saying I have a conflict of interest because of these reasons. And I stated that very clearly September 22nd to all the council members. I also stated that I was going to recluse myself, not from the discussion on this policy, but on the discussion of the current ethics charges. And I was doing that under the charter, which gives me that ability to recluse myself. I don't need other people to tell me, yes you do, or yes you don't. That charter allows me to do that. And there are plenty of documentations to show that personal ethic conflicts do exist, and there is support for that position.
Of course, I wasn't here last meeting, but I do know we all received a correspondence the day after from a citizen that passed on an email, and then it went to all of us. And I think he brought up a good point about the timing, and that this wouldn't be the time for repealing it. I know last February, and I took a lot of the personal responsibility. I mean, I was the one that pushed for 4 years for an ethics ordinance. And then last February, I mentioned we should look at amending it. And I know the conflict of interest, for example, is one of many parts of that. It's one of many items within this ethics ordinance. It's not the only item. But we've got the timing, I think, on this of repealing it. We have a grievance right now dealing with it. We have an Unfair Labor Practice Act dealing with it. I think the timing of doing this is not a good time in that sense, as well as I would like to see where we looked. There's a lot of communities that have them, and they're working, and instead of repealing it, I'd like to see where we got together and looked and said, how do we amend it? The timing, I think that the email we received made a lot of sense. We got on the 7th, I believe.
What is a lot and what is working? Because I've also heard of places where they're dealing with a lot of what we're dealing with, where it's being used for political purposes. And the thing is that it is not inexpensive, because it uses up staff time, it uses up, and if none of us are capable ethically of being able to decide anything that comes up about anything in the city or anybody we know in the city, then the ordinance doesn't work at all, because after the initial ethics board, a hearing would take place here at this body, according to the ordinance. And clearly, we have a problem with that. Clearly Council Melma definitely has a problem with that. And so we passed a law that isn't working and that is unbelievably harmful and divisive in our community. This is not helping people be more ethical. This is giving a loaded bow and arrow to anybody who doesn't agree with something you do that can be shot at you. And then you are in violation of the ethics of this amorphous ethics ordinance, and you are forever scarlet lettered, unethical. So what the heck? Is this who we are? Is this who we want to be? Come on, people. There are if somebody is doing something that is a conflict of interest, that is wrong, that is against the law, then go to the prosecutor. It's been done in places like Chase when people are doing stuff like that. Why can't we do that? But just to say, I disagree with you doing this, or I disagree with your ruling on this, and I don't think the way you ruled on something is ethical, because that could come back too. And I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about, we had a staff member that became a target of this. Could that be any staff member then? Okay, somebody doesn't like the way that Jerry Adams talks to them about their chicken coops, and so all of a sudden he's unethical. Do we want this out there? Is that what we want? Is this how we want to do business? Because this is not how I want to do business.
Well, the problem, though, is that that would change. If someone did that towards me, you would look at them as probably a responsible citizen.
That's not true, because I do not see ethics as political. I see ethics as following the law, doing the job that you were elected to do, and do it to the best of your ability, and Councilmember Mellema, with the best of your conscience. So if you feel like you need to do something with your own conscience, by all means, you need to do that. But to have this thing out there that if I disagree with that, should I file, I could very well file an ethics violation for you doing that. I would never in a million years would do that. And that's what I'm saying, is that is not a tool that I would ever in a million years do for you taking a stand on something that you believe in, or for you ever taking a stand on something you believe in. And perhaps something's going to come at me for taking stands on what I believe in. If we make a law that it can be used, and I'm not saying it's always used or will always be used just for political purposes, but laws that were made for political purposes were the kinds of things that brought down empires, that bring down cities, that bring down communities, person by person by person. That's what we're dealing with right now, right here. And the flood of these coming in as one is filed, and then another one is filed for the same thing, and then another is filed for another thing, but it's really the same thing. That's where we are. That's where we are. I do not think this is in the best interest of our city. I do not think it makes us more ethical. I think it makes us less. I think it makes us more political and less. We need to govern, not do politics here. We need to look at what's in the best interest of the city and each other. Each other. Every single one of us is here because we believe very deeply that what we're doing is the right thing. Not a single one of us here is trying to hurt our community. I firmly believe that. And every single one of us, we disagree, but I have no doubt in my mind that every person at this table, except for maybe the lawyer, I'm kidding, because I just needed to do a joke, that every single one of us has the best interest of the city here. And that none of us are trying to screw each other or hurt each other. I think it was a good idea, that
We didn't
it was a
have
good
any
idea at the
problem
time.
Until last November.
Until the election.
Then you refer to this as being political. Yeah.
Of course it is.
Everything. Campaign. I mean, pure and simple. When you run a campaign in that manner, what do you expect? And when you do things in that manner, what do you expect? For every action, there's a reaction. And if we're going to, by eliminating the ethics policy, and I'm sure that you have the votes, if that's going to be transparency, if that's going to deal with the issue, it won't. It won't go away. You cannot, you have to deal with stuff above the board. As I had stated, you don't investigate yourself, you bring someone in to investigate it and make a determination. Then both sides can say, yes, it's been dealt with fairly.
That's
and
why the
honestly.
state law is the law that covers it. It's not us deciding.
I have asked our attorney to provide that information to me. I have done extensive looking and asking, and I have not found where that is covered under state. I have not found that.
Where
but I have.
Conflict of interest is covered under
I
state law?
have not. I went forward and I asked our attorney to please provide that information to me, and he said he would. But at this point, I cannot find it. I find that it covers under state employees and political appointees at the state level. I do not see where it applies to local government.
Mr. Homer?
And I've asked him to please find that for me and to forward that. And he can forward it to all of you. Not a problem. Transparency.
When we talk about conflicts of interest applicable to local officials, we talk about prohibitions or certain disclosures that have to be made in certain financial dealings, again, getting back to the pecuniary interest. So there are a couple of statutes that apply. One is political activities by public employees, certainly applicable to local or municipal officials, and certain dealings with respect to contracts. And the third one is certain protections afforded in making complaints against other officials in the context of conflicts of interest as well. So I will provide you with the relevant statutes.
You know, it's just the interesting part. Your point, what's on paper doesn't stop it. I mean, then people are taking it, the same answer will be given if they have to take it to a prosecutor or go to the state level, that it's political and it's destructive and such. That action will still happen. It's just the path that it takes to get there and how it's done. And
is not here in-house, which is the complaint I've heard, which is why this cannot work here. Because if all but, and for example, in one case, I think I'm the only one who wasn't deposed in something, so I get to decide? Thank you, no. You see what I'm saying? So there's tools in place that if there's a problem, you go outside. The way to go outside the city is by using the state statutes, not by using our local ordinance. And even if we appointed an ethics board, it is still appointed political appointments, and we see how political appointments have worked out in the past.
Okay, I'm gonna try to put an end to the conversation, but I want to give Council Members Spolman an opportunity to provide input. You haven't, if you would like to.
Yeah, I really don't have anything more to say than what's already been said. Clearly, this is an ordinance that hasn't worked well in this community, and we have had, or we've heard examples of other communities where it hasn't worked well. I believe we are governed by a set of laws that we have to abide by, and we're also governed by a set of moral values, if you will, and ethical values that we all act by. And it is within those that I choose to continue to do business, and I think that the rest of us do as well. We seem to get hung up on who's hearing the complaints and what is that body. And at one point, we all thought that it would be okay if it were the city manager and the city attorney and the mayor. And now we're not so sure of that. And so then the complaint is against the mayor, so we take her out of the picture and we put somebody else in there. But then we continue to have problems with the makeup of that group, and members of that group don't feel comfortable being in it. And so let's put in a third-party group. Then, who's going to choose those? And, when we start to talk about things as important as ethics, it's a really dangerous area to be in. It's to start pointing fingers at people and to start making questions and questioning statements and comments about other people's ethical standards. I can't judge you in that regard. I don't want you to judge me in that regard. And that's all I see with this ordinance is the ability for us human beings to be able to judge other human beings. And it just gets into an area that doesn't seem to work. It's really sad to listen to this conversation, and that it all goes back to that election last year. We can't seem to move past it as a community. That the election is over, decisions have been made, people have cast their votes, not everybody's happy with the outcome, but we're here and we need to move forward as a community. So you can probably tell where I stand on the issue. I would have liked to have given it a go. It would be great, I think, in theory. I voted for it. I think the purpose of it is fine. It kind of holds us all to that standard, and we know that we have to operate that way when we're in office and as an employee. But I haven't seen it work well, and so I'm willing to repeal it at this point and to trust that the laws that we have in place and the system that we have in place are going to be what really guides us in our ethical behavior and our legal behavior.
Okay, at this point in time, I'm not going to make any comment on it, and I would ask for a motion if someone's going to make one.
And this is to set a hearing, which will give the public an opportunity to weigh in at that hearing, and each of us as well. So, even though we already have, but again, I want to make a motion to adopt a resolution to introduce an ordinance to repeal the City of Cadillac Code of Ethics and to set a public hearing for November 17th, 2014.
Support. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Spolman?
Yes.
Stevens?
No.
Melama?
No.
Shippers?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes.
This will give the community an opportunity to weigh in, too.
Excuse me, I'm going to ask respectfully that you wait until public comment to be heard from the gallery, because that's inappropriate. I'm sorry, Tia, go ahead.
No, nothing.
Okay, then we'll go on to the next.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the City Council, this next item is the request to set a public hearing for November 17th regarding an amendment to Section 36-77 of our City Code, snow and ice removal ordinance. If I may, I'm going to just simply read it in its entirety, and then I'll explain where we're looking at making the change. Currently, the meat, if you will, of the ordinance reads as follows. The occupant of any premises or the owner of any unoccupied premises is required to keep the sidewalks in front of or adjacent to such premises cleared so far as is practicable and reasonable from snow and ice to facilitate pedestrian use. Where the continuity of a sidewalk is interrupted between properties within a block or between blocks, the abutting property owners shall clean a path free from snow and ice where a sidewalk would otherwise be to facilitate pedestrian use. And that is the sentence in which we're looking at striking from the ordinance. Maintaining that sentence in the ordinance arguably would require that people shovel landscaped areas of their properties, whether that's front yards or side yards. It's something that, frankly, we have not been enforcing in the past. Something that, in talking with both Public Works and the Police Department, something that we're really not equipped nor have the desire to really require people to remove snow and ice buildup from their lawns, essentially. That's also the areas typically where the snow and ice buildup will be pushed from not only their own removal equipment, but also from plows that are going down the street as it's throwing it up against the person's property. And so as we have been continuing to look at ways of improving our combat, if you will, against our winter season, our snow and ice season, we did think that this would, one, draw a little bit more attention to the current ordinance, and also make it more practical in the way that we're currently working with it. And again, this evening, we're looking at setting a public hearing for November 17th.
Okay. Could we have a motion, please?
Are we going to have any discussion about the communication plan for the citizens, or some novel ideas from staff about how they're going to be enforcing the ordinance this winter?
Well, I still owe council that plan so that you can have that discussion. We have essentially a laundry list of some ideas, or a bulleted list of some ideas as to how to get the word out better to the different groups. And frankly, to try to, not that we're not going to enforce certain areas around town, but enforcement priorities will, to one degree or another, have to be looked at, similar to how we currently enforce our weed ordinance. I mean, it's an on-demand type system. We have a code enforcer that receives calls basically on a daily basis, and will notate and then go out accordingly to look at what the areas are and do follow-up. With respect to snow and ice, it's a similar situation where, based upon feedback that we receive, we then will be going out. But we're also looking at doing some stronger communications, which is something different than what we've done in the past as well, to try to make sure that we're getting that word out better, and that expectations are understood better between where what service the city is able to provide versus what services our own customers, our residents and our commercial partners alike will need to provide as well.
So will this be provided to us before this November 17th?
Ideally, we'd like to try to, I would like to try to have it out as soon as possible.
Okay. Yeah, so ideally we will have it before then.
I have a couple of questions. Hopefully on this topic, there's not enough passion where I can finish a sentence, unlike the last one, but.
Excuse me, I was about to.
Yeah, the last one.
I'm passionate about this.
We're talking about ethics. That's a great example. I mean, last one I tried to finish one sentence and couldn't. But Mr. Petcha mentioned, when you kept referring to we want to change, I'm going back to the legislative action that took place in March, which, and I agree, I didn't vote for that, but a majority of council did. And this seems to be a different direction than that. So when you say we want to change, I'm curious, how did that change from what was asked by council to this? And who is the we?
Not quite sure if anything's changed, Councilmember Stevens. The communication that City Council had in March was to try and get a clearer idea as far as how we're going to be enforcing our ordinance and implementing a communications plan or strategy so that the businesses and residents alike have a better idea as to how our snow and ice program works. What has changed, and honestly I don't really see there being a change, but in looking at what we currently have, myself and members of my staff thought that removing or amending a provision within our ordinance that really is not practical from a maintenance perspective to both any kind of property owner or tenant would be a good recommendation to forward to City Council for consideration.
But, I mean, you know where I'm at of this. I'm concerned with both aspects, but we're picking part of this. I think that their motion was to enforce it on the current ordinance. And now it seems like we're picking some. I still find it really difficult that we're going to actually, I mean, from a staff perspective, this is going to be a nightmare trying to enforce who shoveled their sidewalks and who didn't and who gets a municipal civil infraction and who doesn't. And I know that part's following, but we're now seeming to pick parts of the reasons that were brought up then by those that supported it were for a walkable community to allow people to not have to be in the roads. And I'm just curious as to this. I'm still concerned with either. I think that it's a, I think there's been some recent court decisions too where one could argue how much we can require of them. But I'm just, when I heard this coming up, we hadn't made any direction about setting a public hearing for it. And that's why I was just curious where it came from.
Well, if I may, Councilmember Stevens, members of the council, again, just to reiterate, the language within the ordinance already states, that the owner of any unoccupied or occupied premise is required to keep the sidewalks in front of or adjacent to such premises cleared so far as is practical and reasonable. And I think that those are some key words. That's language that already exists, because I think it's unreasonable to expect, especially after a major snow or ice event, or if they're compounded, that we're going to have sidewalks that are down to the pavement. That's not practical nor reasonable. And as we were looking at putting together some communication devices, looking at the ordinance and seeing that the provision still is in there that would require you to shovel your landscaped areas, we thought that was not really something that we would recommend keeping. And that's what this is all about. We're making a recommendation. Certainly if the City Council chooses to take it in a different direction, that's okay too. I think the reality is, just like with other code enforcement items like blight and like weed and high and tall grass, we take complaints and then we follow them up. If we see issues or areas around town ourselves, then certainly we'll note them and follow up on them accordingly as well. We don't look at enforcement of our ordinances as a selective enforcement, but it's something that if we're made aware of, we'll certainly follow up on. So.
I think
weeds and, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Weeds and landscaping affects all of us. There are many of us who do not have sidewalks. You are one, I'm one, Councilman Spoolman is one. What we're doing is we're saying, if you don't have a sidewalk, it's okay if you walk out the street. I mean, you got to walk somewhere during the winter, right? Can't walk through 3 feet of snow. But if you have a sidewalk, you have to keep it clean. So, in essence, what we're doing is we're picking winners and losers. I mean, if we talk about harmony and we talk about trust and et cetera, I don't see how we can hold one party responsible and not another party. I just see that as a problem. And like I said, weeds, landscaping, yeah, we all have lawns, we all have weeds, or hopefully we don't, and that's universal. But with this situation, we're picking people who have sidewalks, and we're saying, you have to shovel them, and if you don't have a sidewalk, it's okay if people walk out in the street. And that is going to cause us nothing but problems. The other question I have is who in their right mind, if we do this, is going to want a sidewalk? What neighborhood is going to say, hey, let's put in a sidewalk? That'd be great for our kids. No one's going to want to do that.
I
Not at all.
disagree with
Not at all. It won't happen.
Wow.
I have where
Most of the sidewalks that we have are in areas that are either old or in areas that there's a lot of traffic, and where there aren't sidewalks, generally speaking, but not always. It's in areas of, like at the end of cul-de-sacs. We both live on a cul-de-sac, or in other areas where there's not a lot of traffic. I wish there were more sidewalks in this city, because I wish that everybody had a sidewalk and that we didn't have to have people walking in the streets, because, you know, people who are driving cars don't tend to slow down too very much for pedestrians or move over. I see it all the time by Kenwood School where I live. To see people having to walk down Chestnut without any sidewalk, it's awful, hanging onto their kids, going in and out of the school. But I'm fully in support of us amending this ordinance as recommended, if indeed this will help us enforce this ordinance better. And so that we're just talking about the sidewalk. We're not making any guesswork that, you know, there really should be a pathway here, so you have to plow it. I totally support that. And I appreciate you putting this in front of us. I'm looking forward to seeing what a good communication plan might look like. Last year we gave some examples, like little things that go on doorknobs that talk about the importance of why people should be shoveling the ice and the snow off their sidewalk. We talked about who to call if somebody needs some help and they can't shovel themselves. That could be part of the communication. We talked about electronic communications, but being really clear about why it's important to keep your sidewalks clear, and then what happens if you don't comply. So that, you know, now we have an ordinance out there, and we've had this ordinance for a really long time. This isn't new. But we haven't seemed to enforce it at all. And so it's almost as if it doesn't exist, and nobody knows that it is their responsibility. And there's a lot of able-bodied people out there, both residents and businesses, that are capable of helping the city out and taking a shovel and removing the 2 inches of snow off the sidewalk, making it passable not only for pedestrians, but also for those mail carriers. I think it's the right thing to do.
And I would go back to our guiding behaviors. You know, we are all accountable, and it says it right at the top of our agenda this evening. And, you know, all the way up through the Michigan Municipal League, we talk about making our communities walkable. And there are a lot of people who live in Cadillac who don't own a car. There are a lot of homes near our elementary schools that don't necessarily have a sidewalk, or they do have a sidewalk. It's like a road rally in the afternoon trying to get to past the elementary schools while people are picking their children up. But the first time that someone gets hit in one of our streets because we didn't take care of our sidewalk, I think we're all going to feel very differently about being accountable to this ordinance. And, if we need to amend it so it appears that it's fair and that we're able to accomplish that, I too would absolutely support that. And maybe a couple of council members need to spend time with Marcus and make it so that this is manageable. But I think that we need to make some movement forward so that people feel safe and that we are holding people accountable.
The section I think a lot of people are concerned about is Section B, which states this section is punishable as a municipal civil infraction. And I can personally say I've shoveling, which neighbors should do. I shovel some seniors' driveways because they're out in sub-zero weather, concerned they're going to get a ticket. And that's the issue. I would like to see, we've seen a lot of success, and I'm hoping we're continuing. I hope this isn't going to substitute our sidewalk plow. And a lot of people ask, what about that beautiful, wonderful snow plow? I hope we're going to go forward with that plan. I don't know if that's still part of the plan, Mr. Petch, in terms of getting the seasonal employees on board and getting them out.
That is not, our approach to the operations has not changed.
Which part, the beginning of last year? I mean, are we going to be doing them on a regular basis, or?
Yes, how we did last year where we had the new piece of equipment, we had the seasonal person operating. We're not looking at changing the different way of managing the program. The different way was what we did towards the end of last year. So.
But that's just where
Right.
Okay, this is to set a hearing, right?
Yes.
We've had a hearing setting a hearing.
Yeah.
Well, we did
That's
because
okay.
usually we have discussion ahead of time to set the hearing, and this
Right.
is the first time this is
Right.
coming
Right.
Well,
up
that's
to
okay.
it.
I mean, we needed to have the discussions, so.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution to introduce an ordinance to amend Section 36-77 of the Cadillac City Code, snow and ice removal, and set a public hearing for November 17.
Support.
Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Melama,
No.
Shippers,
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Stevens,
No.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the minutes of boards and commissions. And this evening, we have the minutes from the Cadillac Arts Council meeting on September 22nd, as well as the minutes to the meeting of the Dog Park Advisory Committee, which was held on September 10th. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the floor for the second public comment. Again, if you would please limit your comments to 3 minutes and also write down your name and address. We would greatly appreciate that.
First of all, my name is Kathleen Mary Williams. I live on Moyer Street. And I think that I live in America where I have free speech. I don't know if I'm the only one here tonight that this has happened to me before, and I never say anything because I am a little bit hard of hearing. But you know what you guys are talking about, it's like an auto jumble. You can hear, I could hear her speaking when she spoke, and then I could hear Jerry when he spoke. But you know how I find out what was really said? I go home and I wait until you get it on the TV, and you can hear it really good on there. So I'm not sure, maybe I'm the only one that's having a problem with this. And if I am, why the majority should rule. But anyhow, the other issue, I'm not going to get into this very far tonight, but I just want to say, about your ethics committee, it's 9 times out of 10, there's a good chance that the complaint is going to be against one or the other of you guys, right? So, having said that, it seemed like one of the ways to resolve your problem would be that we should have an outside, uninterested party serving on the Ethics Committee. Number 2 about the Ethics Committee, how can 3 people really get a broad enough view without entertaining, maybe this guy's their friend or you like their ideas? Are you really opening your mind to what's going on? That would be hard to do. So if you had a rule that said people that consist of your board you have here probably should not serve on the Ethics Committee. And the other thing is, I don't know how you can use just 3 people. I think you should have at least 5. And like I was saying before, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to have a complaint against one of you when it comes to that. And you are judging your own issues when you're on that committee. You can't get around it. I mean, it's obvious. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council, mayor, city manager. Hi, I'm just a little confused, so I just thought I'd ask a couple questions if I may. On the one here that you had adopted the resolution here on the building inspector's services, was there a public hearing on the first meeting that you brought up that people said they were unaware of? I'm just curious. Okay.
Yeah, in the adoption of the original ordinance, yes.
I'm also a little, okay, thank you. Since we had a support document or 4A in you guys' whatever you guys have, is that something that the audience can see on the viewfinders, the monitors? I mean, I'm just used to that in my meeting, that we show people in the audience what's going on. You were passing something that everyone out here, myself included, didn't have a clue what it was, except it's listed here. So I'm just curious, there's a support document somewhere, well, that you've stated that you have. And if you voted on these fee or rates, somebody should have known that, or you got them published, I guess. I'm just...
They were actually presented at the meeting that you just asked if we had. They were presented at that meeting.
Okay.
And it was on the screen.
But yet there is, tonight, still a public hearing about it, but the public was a little lost. So I'm just trying to educate myself.
The public hearing is on the ordinance to amend the prior ordinance, okay? So there was an original ordinance that said City of Cadillac's going to enforce the building code, okay? Which is all that's required by statute. That information then is presented to the state Bureau of Construction Codes. Bureau of Construction Codes said, well, we can't discern from this whether or not the city intended to also enforce plumbing, mechanical, and electrical codes. And so we want you to identify those 3 additional codes as codes you intend to enforce, which is why we then had to amend the original to delineate plumbing, mechanical, and electrical.
Okay. But on the rates that these gentlemen were asking for, and I'm a little involved in that because of heating and stuff too in our business, but I was just curious if you guys had the rates, but nobody answered these guys' questions about the rates.
We did. We had a public hearing in which the whole rate structure was displayed and talked about all on that a couple of months back.
We don't have those in front of us tonight.
Tonight, we don't have it in front of us.
Okay, okay.
If we did, we'd definitely.
Well, and that's why I think a lot of people were lost, myself included, in listening to you, so, okay. Is it possible, I guess, that some of these, that when you guys have support documents, that just like our planning board, you know, Jerry puts it up on the monitor?
Well, the support documents that we had this evening
Just
was
dealt with
what he just said. It wasn't what was in the last meeting.
Gotcha.
So
okay,
it wouldn't have helped.
Perfect. Thank you.
So you bet. Thank you for asking the question.
I'll put my name and address down. Sorry. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hello, Richie Harris, 124 and a half Air Street. I sat through this meeting and I laughed and chuckled a few times, and I have no reason to. I'm not part of anybody's game. I'm not an evil political person, Ms. Shippers, as you kind of came out in the paper after you found out that I had filed an ethics violation. I came here tonight and contemplating rescinding that because I'm not so sure if it's as ethical as it is conflict of interest. And you know, it really bothers me when I start to read articles in the paper where people start talking about the good old girls. And I was really offended when I read on social media how you had bashed another council member about his personal belief in what he believed to be ethical and got up and walked out of that part of the meeting and then came back in. And it really, really upset me. And I'll tell you, I'm not on anybody's campaign. I don't play for anybody. I have a lot of spare time and I do a lot of reading about what's going on. In fact, I was reading yesterday in the paper where Cedar Springs, Michigan is being sued. Their council is being sued by 2 of their own council members, sued because of a closed meetings, an Opens Meeting Act. Well, I guess my problem is it goes back in May, I wrote a public opinion to the paper, and my personal belief is this could have all been solved a long time ago had the mayor just stepped aside for those first closed session meetings. And like it said in my public opinion, if we were going to war with Russia, would they invite us into their strategy meeting? And I just thought that was poor judgment and poor advice by possibly Mr. Homier, wherever it came from, to let her set in on those closed sessions meetings. And I believe that that's where all the FOIA, that's where all the hate and discontent and everything has came from. If she'd have just recused herself for those first couple meetings till it got out in the air, and now all of a sudden people are talking, well, there's tapes that were erased and there's this and there's that. It's like there's an inter-town conspiracy. And I was glad to hear you talk about the transit bus, because I'm a rider, I don't drive. And you'd believe some of the conversations I hear on that bus, older people, younger people, talking. And people do talk, and it's amazing, but you guys better watch out because there's possibly some more political and legal, or some firemen talking that they may come back and start a violation suit because Mr. Blackburn has been appointed back to that committee. If that happens, who does Mr. Homer represent? Mr. Blackburn or the firemen? Sorry.
Okay, not seeing anyone else, we'll close public comments. And we'll move into good of the order. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. I did want to, last time when I mentioned I did write a statement because we were talking about the statement and having it written out where you could hand it in, then that it could be put in. But I did want to just read a good of the order of the statement to be part of the minutes. But over the past few months, as you know, I've continually addressed my concern on how we are handling the nearly 12 grievances and lawsuits that are currently taking place with the City of Cadillac by our own employees and citizens. For my first 14 years on the City Council would be updated on these cases and we would give direction to the case. Most of those years, we would make a decision to appropriate funds and or to fight the case. These steps would be in compliance with the city charter and the Michigan Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act. Recently, our council has not been given the opportunity to review the appropriate cases and determine how we want to proceed. We are not given the opportunity to approve the expense of the lawsuits, which would come over $7,500, and we have not been appropriating money to the budget for legal expenses before the expenses have been incurred, as we know in the last 2 quarters of last year. I want to officially put on the record that I do not approve of this process and feel that we need to be following the city charter and the Michigan Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act. This isn't, if some consider that being a micromanaging step by us council, it isn't considered that. It is actually being considered doing our duty as elected officials to the citizens of Cadillac. We will not get control of the legal fees, and we will not continue to go over, we will continue to go over budget on our legal fees until we require us to get back to the process that worked so successfully for the 12 years that I have been on city council. I feel we need to address all of these grievances and lawsuits that are being made by our employees with the same eagerness that we had to address the recent case concerning the member of the Civil Service Commission. In doing so, I think we could get all these things under wraps. We constantly credit our employees, which I agree with, for being so dedicated to our community and also their dedication to our citizens. I believe we owe them the respect to make sure that we are at least following the correct process to either settle those cases or fight them in court. And thank you. And I'll give that to Mr. Pecha for the official record. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Malama?
Just a couple things. One, I was notified by the University of Michigan, and of course our initiative with the Innovation Center is coming forward and is going forward. And I was informed from U of M that Ohio State and Purdue, along with the University of Michigan, have received a defensive manufacturer assistance program. And any manufacturer that has been affected by the cutbacks defensively in the community, and I'll get back to that point, either reduction of 5% of employment or 5% in sales is eligible. And what will happen is once that company has been identified or identifies itself and participates, they will look and see what they produce. Either Michigan or University of Michigan, Ohio State, or Purdue, or a collection of the three will come up and take a look at what intellectual properties they have and assist that company in manufacturing a product that would be more consumer-based. And they'll assist them all the way from product development, research, all the way through to pinpointing markets. Mr. Adams has identified in our greater Wexford area, and I say greater because it goes in just outside of Wexford County, 41 manufacturers that deal in one way or another with defense. So this is a great, great opportunity, and the initiative that we took several years ago is paying off. And there is a large grant, and like I said, it comes out of the Defense Department. And so we'll be putting a letter together shortly with the Manufacturers Association and the city, and hopefully the county, and getting that information out and contact people to get a hold of. And the second thing I wanted to mention is we had a great meeting couple weeks ago at Meyer, and it was well attended, and it was very, very informative. And I know the manufacturers got a lot of information out of that, especially on inventory systems and how a large box store does business. And our next meeting will be the second Tuesday in November, and it'll be at Rexair. And there'll be a special person that will be coming up from MMA that will deal with environmental issues. And a lot of changes have happened in the area of environmental. A lot of regulations coming down both at the Fed and state level. And it'll be an update on those regulations. And it'll also give you an opportunity to participate in that discussion with your representative from MMA, Michigan Manufacturers Association. So that is definitely a meeting that you want to pay attention to and attend. The only other thing is, don't forget to vote in November. That's a very, very important right. And the apathy, I think somebody said we only had 16% in Wexford County, I think, voted. I think I heard that number. Could be wrong. Don't want to be held to that completely. But, yeah, we need to vote, people. This is not the time to be complacent. That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Shippers.
Taking a deep breath. I have just a couple of things as well. First of all, we participated in the Michigan Municipal League convention in Marquette this last week. Took 3 personal days off of work and went up to learn some very interesting and hopeful things that we can implement here in our community. Looking ahead at some ways to find funding for projects to take care of some vacant properties perhaps in our city, and lots of other ways, lots of very cool stuff that I want to share. And we're going to we set the date for that goal setting. I want to be sure to talk to everybody about some more of that stuff in more detail about some of the things I learned. What else? The Youth Council proposals are out there. If there's anyone out there who would like to be on the Youth Council, the Cadillac Youth Council, please go on to the city website and get a hold of that application. We're looking at a couple more weeks, I believe, until the application process is closed, and then we'll be doing interviews and seating a youth city council here in Cadillac. I think that's all for tonight.
Okay, thank you.
There's a Lake Mitchell Improvement Board meeting tomorrow at 1:30. And we'll be obviously wrapping up this past year and starting to look forward for next year. Have made quite a significant improvement on the lake quality in terms of invasive species on Lake Mitchell this past year, and we'll be hearing that report from our consultant tomorrow. I, too, attended the Michigan Municipal League conference in Marquette last week, had the opportunity to see the Bridge of Steel that we had the pledge for today, and it was great. Always enjoy going up to the UP. And the one thing that I learned that I had heard about before but enjoyed going to the session and learning more about was investment crowdfunding. Like, who wouldn't want to invest in their local community when there's a project that's going to be a great project? And right now, the state of Michigan actually has a match grant available. So if we can raise money for projects here, the state will be able to match it 1-to-1, which is a great deal. And we've got a whole list of projects and potential projects, like the Cobbs and Mitchell building. Wouldn't that be a great lumbering museum? Yeah. You heard it here first. Lumbering museum. Jerry's shaking. Somebody else has another idea? Not everybody wants a lumbering museum? Come on. I think it's a great idea. The other thing that, we heard over and over again, and you hear it at these kind of things, is the importance of placemaking and the importance of parks and recreation and arts and culture and what that means to a community. We make decisions all the time that, always budget related, and it's so hard for us to see that big picture and to move forward with the importance of art and culture in the community and what that brings not only to the residents of the community, but all the folks that want to come here to see that as well. So I hope we can put a great plan together that includes all of that.
Good. Mr. Betcha.
Thank you. First item I wanted to mention is a great gratitude and thanks to Chemical Bank in Cadillac on Columbus Day. which was a banking holiday. They hosted their second annual Chemical Bank Cares Day and volunteered to help with some landscaping-related work at the ADA playground, as well as at the new pavilion, Rotary Pavilion restroom facilities. And so it was a real wonderful volunteer effort that came forward and helped with various landscaping-related exercises and projects at both of those facilities. With respect to that ADA playground, we are going to be looking at having a ribbon cutting yet this fall, and so please keep an eye out for the communication that'll be coming.
Hopefully it's not during school hours.
Don't know yet, but we'll yeah.
It's a playground, for crying out loud.
Saturday morning. Okay, thank you. This past weekend, I had the opportunity and the honor to be a judge for the local YMCA's annual fundraiser, Dancing with the Y-Stars. There were over 450 people in attendance, and it was fantastic, and I'm looking forward to hearing how much money was raised. There was a lot of energy and a lot of moves in that room on Saturday night. So I'm also looking forward this next week to attending the city's annual volunteer for our boards in the community. They're having a volunteer appreciation luncheon, so I'm looking forward to attending that. I too had the opportunity to participate in the Michigan Municipal League Conference in Marquette last week, and Marquette was amazing, and they're amazing with the things that they have done with that beautiful city on the water, and they were amazing hosts, and they planned an agenda that gave everyone an opportunity to be involved in something that they were passionate about or they were probably dealing with in their own communities. So they were very thoughtful in putting that together. One of the takeaways that I took from that conference, and I think is invaluable to this community, is our placemaking and connecting with people. You know, we've already seen a rendering of what our city park could look like. And I truly believe that we need to start placing arts and culture a little higher on the pecking order in our thought processes, to see the real increases in important measures in our community, such as community participation, either through volunteerism or people coming out to enjoy the events, making them happen. A measure as far as grants, either seeking the grants or the grants that we're awarded. There's so much out there available to us, and you know, we need to look for those awards to make these things happen in the community that we know we can. And finally, the historic preservation through all of that work, focusing on the arts and the culture. I mean, we have a historic district here in town, and we have a group of volunteers in that district that want to go, and they want things to do. And this whole arts and culture initiative gives them a perfect pathway to do that. I believe that arts and culture can actually make a place like Cadillac absolutely unique and unmistakable and irreplaceable to the people who live here and the people who visit here. Being genuine and authentic in creating this sense of place here in Cadillac will be key. And I think that we've made absolutely great strides. And I think that our focus and our effort moving forward is to complement all of the investment that's already been made here by the people who have made those investments. And how do we complement it? How do we continue that good work and those visions? And I think that the Michigan Municipal League has the resources available to us to help us on that journey. I don't think that we should underestimate the number of entrepreneurs, that's a hard word to say, or the number of artists that we have in this community. It's huge. And we should be continuing to build with those folks the strong foundation of this community as we move forward. I have an ask, and that's that as we visit the other cities in the state of Michigan, or the other states around us, or other countries that we visit, that we keep an open mind and keep our eyes open and be creative to what can we bring back to our community? What do we see in those communities that we think that could work here? And take down those walls and stop thinking about why we can't and figure out how we can. Finally, I would say that I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to have participated in the opportunity to sit down with other municipal mayors. We had a luncheon, yes, a luncheon with other women in politics, as well as council members and city managers from all over the state of Michigan. And we learned a lot. We met a lot of new people and came back with a lot of ideas, and I really appreciate that opportunity. We did have the opportunity to present with 5 other municipalities? 6 other municipalities for our Bike Cadillac program. And we didn't win, but we heard a lot of really great comments about our program. And we gave out a lot of business cards, and I think we're going to hear from a lot of people. There was some pretty stiff competition because there's amazing stuff happening all over the state. So just being able to be there and to present it was pretty awesome. So thank you to everyone who is involved in that production, and to the state park, and to After 26 for being the sites for that, and I hope that we can expand it in the future, because now I think people are talking about it. So that's everything that I have this evening.
You want to let the public know about our next meeting?
Oh, yes. Our next meeting, the night before the election, is not going to take place. So our next meeting won't be until...
Sandy's over there going...
November 17th. So if you show up here, it'll be kind of quiet that
No, yeah, no, it won't. They'll be setting up for the election.
Well, it won't be busy in here, so it'll be a different kind of busy. So with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.